Imagine you're standing in the middle of nowhere. All around you, a sea of gold stretches to the horizon. This is northeastern Wyoming, a land of immense, rolled-in prairies that seem to go on forever. The sky is a vast, endless blue, so big it feels like it could swallow you whole. Out here, the silence is a character in itself. It's not an empty silence, but a living one, filled with the whisper of the wind as it dances through the tall grasses. It's a sound that's been the same for thousands of years, a constant, gentle hum that speaks of time and solitude. You can feel the sun on your skin, the clean, crisp air filling your lungs. It's a place that feels ancient, untouched, a world away from the noise of our modern lives. The land is so flat, so uniform, that you could almost believe it continues like this forever. But it doesn't. Because suddenly, something breaks the perfect line of the horizon. It rises from the earth with an impossible, sudden grace. A colossal pillar of stone, reaching for the sky like a petrified giant. This is Devil's Tower. It doesn't just sit on the landscape. It commands Italiano. Its presence is so abrupt, so dramatic, that it feels less like a part of the earth, and more like something placed upon it. From a distance, it looks like a single, solid monument, a dark silhouette against the bright sky. But as you get closer, its true complexity is revealed. The tower is not smooth, but a breathtaking collection of vertical columns, hexagonal and pentagonal, packed together like a bundle of gigantic stone pencils. They soar hundreds of feet into the air, their sides scarred by time and weather. The sheer geometry of it is mind-boggling. The lines are so clean, so precise. You'd be forgiven for thinking they were carved by hand. The scale of it is difficult to comprehend until you're standing at its base, craning your neck to see the top. You feel incredibly small, humbled by its sheer size and ancient power. The rock glows with different colors depending on the light. A warm orange in the morning sun, a deep, shadowy gray as clouds pass over, and a fiery red at sunset. Lichen clings to its surface in patches of green and yellow, a testament to the life that thrives even on this stark, vertical world. You can almost feel the energy radiating from it. A silent, powerful vibration that sinks deep into your bones. This isn't just a rock formation. It's a sanctuary. For countless generations, this tower has been a sacred place for Native American tribes, including the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho. They have names for it like Bear's Lodge or Home of the Bear, and their stories are woven into the very fabric of the stone. You see prayer cloths in bundles tied to the trees near its base, colorful ribbons fluttering in the wind. They are offerings, prayers left behind by those who come here seeking connection and spiritual guidance. These small, human touches only amplify the tower's sacred aura. They remind you that you are walking on holy ground, a place of immense cultural and spiritual significance that predates any modern name or designation. It's a place that demands respect, a quiet reverence. Standing near you are part of a long history of pilgrimage, a people drawn to this incredible geological wonder for reasons that go far beyond simple curiosity. It's a place where the veil between the physical and spiritual worlds feels thin, where you can't help but feel connected to something larger than yourself. And as you stare up at those perfectly formed columns, a question inevitably forms in your mind. A question that has been asked by everyone who has ever laid eyes on this place for centuries. How did this get here? Was this incredible structure truly carved by the slow, patient hands of nature, by the forces of volcanic activity, erosion, and time? The geological explanation tells a story of molten magma pushing up from deep within the earth, cooling and cracking into these magnificent columns, while the softer surrounding rock was weathered away over millions of years. It's a scientific marvel, a perfect storm of geological processes that resulted in this unique masterpiece. It's a story of deep time, of forces so powerful and slow they are almost impossible for the human mind to grasp fully. Or, as the ancient stories and the sheer wonder of the place might suggest, was it created by something greater? The tribal legends speak of a giant bear, its claws raking the sides of a growing mountain to create the deep grooves we see today. They tell of 7 sisters who were saved from the bear by the Great Spirit, who raised the rock from the ground to lift them to safety in the sky, where they became the stars of the Pleiades constellation. These stories aren't just myths. They are a different way of understanding, a way of seeing the spirit and intention behind the creation of such a powerful place. They speak to a deeper truth about the tower's role as a place of refuge, salvation, and divine connection. So, as you stand in the shadow of this colossal enigma, you're left to wonder, is it the product of random geological chance, a beautiful accident of nature, or is it a monument with a purpose, a message written in stone by nature, or perhaps by something far beyond our understanding? The tower keeps its secrets close, leaving us with nothing but awe and the profound, humbling question of its origin. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for the next chapter. Long before the first European settlers cast their eyes upon the vast, rolling plains of what we now call Wyoming, this land was already home. It was a landscape rich with life, stories, and deep spiritual meaning, navigated by indigenous nations who knew its every contour and secret. They were the first to witness the awe-inspiring geological marvel we are exploring today, a formation that rises dramatically from the earth, touching the sky. Imagine a world without maps as we know them, a world where the land itself was the map, read through generations of experience, stories passed down from elder to child. In T's world, the Kiowa, the Lakota, the Cheyenne, and many other tribes roamed freely. They followed the great bison herds, their lives intricately woven into the rhythms of the seasons and the pulse of the natural world. And at the heart of this world, for many of them, stood a colossal stone pillar. To us, it's often known by a name given much later, a name that hints at something sinister: Devil's Tower. But that name is a misunderstanding, a translation error that has stuck for centuries. For the people who lived here for millennia, it was never a place of devils. It was a place of immense power, a sacred site, a beacon of spiritual significance. It was a holy place. The Lakota people call it Mato Tipila, which translates to Bear's Lodge or Bear's House. The Cheyenne have similar names, referring to it as the Bear's Tipi. These names aren't just labels. They are doorways into a profound worldview, one where the natural world is alive and imbued with spirit. This towering rock was not just a geological formation. It was a character in the grand, ongoing story of creation. The very name, Matotipila, tells a story. The deep, vertical grooves that scar its sides, which geologists call columnar jointing, are seen through a different lens in Lakota tradition. They are the claw marks of a giant bear. The story, with variations among different tribes, often tells of children, or perhaps a group of young maidens, who were playing in the fields when they were suddenly chased by a monstrous bear. Terrified, they scrambled onto a small rock and prayed to the Great Spirit for help. In response to their pleas, the rock beneath them began to grow, stretching higher and higher into the sky, lifting them out of the bear's reach. The bear, enraged and desperate, clawed furiously at the sides of the growing tower, trying to climb up to the children. But the rock was too steep, too solid. The bear's claws only left deep gashes in the stone, the very marks we see today. The children were lifted safely into the heavens, where they became the star cluster we know as the Pleiades. This story is so much more than a simple folktale. It's a lesson in faith, a testament to the power of prayer, and a celestial map that connects the earth to the stars. It embeds the tower into the cosmos, making it a physical link between the terrestrial and the divine. When you look at the tower through this lens, it ceases to be just a mountain. It becomes a monument to a miracle, a testament to salvation. It is a story of how the sacred can intervene in the ordinary world to protect the innocent. For the Kiowa, another powerful story is tied to the tower. Their legend also involves giant bears and children being saved by a rising rock. In their telling, it's 7 young girls who are saved and become the Pleiades. This shared narrative theme across different cultures underscores the universal power of the site. It wasn't just one tribe's holy place. Its spiritual gravity was felt by many nations across the plains. These weren't just stories told around a campfire for entertainment. They were, and are, living traditions that inform cultural practices, ceremonies, and a deep respect for the land. The tower, or Bear Lodge, was a place for vision quests, a solitary spiritual journey undertaken to seek guidance and understanding. Young men would go to the base of the tower, or even attempt to climb it, fasting and praying for days on end, hoping for a vision that would guide their life's path. It was a place for the sun dance, one of the most important religious ceremonies for many Plains tribes. This intense, multi-day ceremony involves prayer, dancing, and personal sacrifice, all aimed at renewing the individual, the community, and the earth itself. The presence of Bear Lodge as a backdrop for such a powerful ceremony amplified its sacredness, connecting the people directly to the Creator and the spirit world. The area around the tower was also rich in resources. The ponderosa pine forests provided wood and shelter. The Belforchi River offered water. The plains teemed with game, but it was always understood that this was a special place. You didn't just come here to hunt or gather. You came with reverence. You approached with respect. It was a place where the veil between the physical and spiritual worlds was thin. Think about what it means to see a place as being alive, not just metaphorically, but literally. For these indigenous nations, the tower wasn't an it. It was a who. It had agency, a spirit. It was a relative, a grandfather figure, a sacred being that watched over the land and its people. This perspective fosters a relationship with the environment built on reciprocity and respect, not on domination and extraction. When you view the landscape this way, every rock, every river, every mountain has a story. The land is a library of sacred texts. Bear Lodge was one of its most important volumes. Its presence on the horizon was a constant reminder of the spiritual forces that shape the world, of the stories that give life meaning, and of the deep connection between humanity and nature. So, as we continue to explore the history and science of this incredible place, it is vital that we start here. We must acknowledge that long before it was a national monument, long before it was a tourist destination or a climber's challenge, it was, and remains, Mato Tipila Lodge. It is a church, a cathedral built not by human hands, but by the forces of nature and sanctified by millennia of human belief and ceremony. This is the foundation of its story. The first people to see it didn't just see a rock. They saw a refuge. They saw a miracle. They saw a divine connection etched into the very stone of the earth. They saw a home for the bear, a ladder to the stars, and a place of immense spiritual power. They saw a living entity, a sacred relative, and to truly understand this place, we must try to see it through their eyes, too. Thank you so much for joining me on this part of our journey. It's a story that deserves to be told with respect and care. If you found this perspective meaningful, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapter of our exploration. We have so much more to uncover. See you in the next video. Welcome, travelers, to a realm where legends breathe and the stars whisper ancient tales. Tonight, we journey to the heart of the American West, to a place of awe and reverence, known to many as Devil's Tower. But long before it bore that name, it was, and still is, a sacred place to the native peoples of the plains. We invite you to close your eyes, relax your mind, and listen to the story woven into its very stone, the legend of the chaste maidens. Our story begins in a time when the world was young, and spirits walked the earth. 7 sisters, beautiful and full of life, were playing in a sun-drenched meadow, their laughter echoing through the tall grasses. They were the heart of their village, cherished by all. As they ventured further from the safety of their camp, a shadow fell over the land. It wasn't a cloud blocking the sun. It was something immense, something ancient and powerful. A great bear, larger than any they had ever seen, emerged from the forest. Its eyes burned with a primal hunger, and it fixed its gaze upon the sisters. Terror seized them. They turned and ran, their playful cries turning to desperate pleas. The bear, with its massive strides, easily closed the distance. The ground trembled with its pursuit. The sisters, knowing they could not outrun the beast, prayed to the Great Spirit for salvation. Their feet were swift, but the bear's were swifter. Its hot breath was on their necks, its growling a thunder in their ears. They felt the earth shake with each powerful step the giant creature took, getting closer, ever closer. The forest that once felt like a playground now seemed like a labyrinth with no escape. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sounded like the phantom steps of their pursuer. Just as their hope began to wane, they stumbled upon a small, low rock, barely rising above the plains. It seemed an insignificant refuge, but it was all they had. Scrambling to its top, they huddled together. Their hearts pounding in unison, they raised their voices in a final, unified prayer. A desperate song to the heavens, pleading for deliverance. The great bear reached the base of the rock, its colossal form towering over them. It reared up on its hind legs, ready to strike, its shadow engulfing the 7 terrified maidens. The air grew still, the world holding its breath in anticipation of the inevitable. In that moment of pure desperation, the Great Spirit heard their plea. The small rock beneath their feet began to tremble, not from the bear, but from a power deep within the earth. It began to grow, to rise, lifting the sisters higher and higher into the sky. The rock stretched upward, smooth and straight, carrying them away from the danger below. The bear, enraged and bewildered, clawed frantically at the rising stone. It leaped and scraped, trying to follow them, its massive claws tearing deep, vertical grooves into the sides of the growing rock. Again and again, it lunged. But the tower grew ever faster, ever higher. The stone pillar ascended until it touched the clouds, placing the sisters far beyond the reach of the furious bear. The deep gashes left by its claws remain to this day, a testament to the chase of the famous ridges that define the tower's unique and formidable appearance. From their perch high above the world, the sisters looked down. The great bear, defeated, eventually lumbered away, its roars of frustration fading into the vastness of the plains. The sisters were safe, but they were no longer of the earth. They had been lifted into the celestial realm. The Great Spirit, in an act of eternal compassion, transformed the 7 sisters into a cluster of shining stars, so they could forever watch over their people from the night sky. They became the Pleiades, a twinkling constellation that serves as a guide for hunters and a comfort to those who look up from the world below. And the great stone tower, born of a prayer and scarred by a beast, stands as a sacred monument to their salvation. It is a powerful reminder of faith, the bond of sisterhood, and the enduring connection between the earth and the heavens. This is the story told by the Lakota, the Kiowa, and other tribes of the region. It is a story of how a place of great power and beauty came to be. It is not just a landmark, but a living legend, a sacred pillar connecting the terrestrial with the divine. When you look at the tower, you are seeing more than just rock. You are seeing the embodiment of a desperate prayer answered. You are seeing the claw marks of a mythical beast. And when you look up at the night sky and find the 7 little stars of the Pleiades, you are seeing the 7 sisters, safe forever. Their story is a lullaby whispered by the wind that sweeps across the plains, a timeless tale of courage and divine intervention. It teaches that even in our darkest moments, when pursued by our greatest fears, it reminds us that by holding on to faith and calling out for help, a path to safety can be created where none existed before. The tower stands as a symbol of this powerful truth, its magnificent presence, a constant reassurance that we are never truly alone. The spirit that raised the rock continues to watch over the land and its people. And so, as you drift off to sleep, let this legend fill your dreams. Picture the 7 sisters, now stars, twinkling with eternal grace. Imagine the great stone tower, a silent guardian on the plains, its ridges telling a story of a miraculous escape. Allow the peace of this sacred place to envelop you, knowing that the stories of the earth and sky are intertwined, and that even in the face of immense challenges, there is a power that can lift us up, above our troubles, and into the calm of the heavens. The legend lives on, not just in stone, but in the hearts of those who remember. Thank you for joining us on this journey into myth and legend. We hope this story brought you a sense of peace and wonder. If you enjoyed this tale, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more stories that soothe the soul and spark the imagination. May your dreams be filled with starlight and ancient wisdom. Sleep well. Hello, and welcome back to our journey into the heart of America's sacred landscapes. Today, we're diving deep into the diverse and beautiful stories surrounding one of the most iconic natural wonders, Devil's Tower. You might think there's just one legend, but the truth is far richer. This single monolith has been woven into countless spiritual narratives, each with its own unique spirit. Let's explore how different tribes interpreted this colossal stone and what it meant to them. Our first stop is with the Cheyenne people. In their tradition, the story is a dramatic tale of survival and divine intervention. It begins with 7 young girls out playing in the forest. Suddenly, they were pursued by a giant, terrifying bear. Fleeing for their lives, they scrambled onto a low, flat rock and prayed to the Great Spirit for help. Hearing their desperate pleas, the Great Spirit caused the rock to grow, lifting the girls higher and higher into the sky, far beyond the reach of the furious bear. The bear, in its rage, clawed and scraped at the sides of the rising stone, its massive claws carving the deep vertical grooves we see today. The girls were saved, but they were now stranded in the sky. To honor their innocence and their faith, the Great Spirit transformed them into a cluster of stars, the Pleiades. They could shine down and watch over their people forever. This story beautifully connects the tower not just to the earth, but to the cosmos, linking a terrestrial landmark to a celestial one. It's a powerful narrative about protection, transformation, and the eternal connection between the people and the heavens. Now, let's journey to the Arapaho, whose version of the story shares some similarities but has its own distinct heart. The Arapaho tale also features children, a young girl and her brother, who are chased by a ferocious bear. In their version, the children are carrying a sacred turtle, a symbol of longevity and protection. As the bear closes in, they place the turtle on the ground and pray. Miraculously, the turtle begins to grow, expanding into a massive, mountain-sized shell. The children climb onto its back, and it continues to rise, becoming the great stone tower. The angry bear leaps and claws at the sides, creating the familiar striations, but it cannot reach them. The children are safe. In this story, the emphasis is placed on the power of a sacred object, and the importance of faith in traditional symbols. The turtle, a creature deeply connected to both water and earth, becomes the instrument of salvation, transforming into a mighty fortress. It is a story that highlights the Arapaho reverence for the natural world and the spiritual power that resides within it. It's not just about a rising rock, it's about a living, sacred being intervening to protect the innocent. Next, we turn to the Crow people, whose narrative takes a slightly different, though equally fascinating, turn. The Crow legend tells of 2 young boys who wandered far from their village and became lost. As night fell, they were frightened and alone. A giant bear, with eyes like burning coals, found them and began to chase them. The boys ran until they came to the stump of a colossal tree. They climbed it, praying for deliverance. The Great Spirit heard their prayers and caused the tree stump to grow taller and taller, lifting them safely into the sky. The bear, enraged, clawed at the sides of the growing stump, leaving the deep grooves we see on the tower. Once the boys were safe in the heavens, they were turned into stars to guide their people. What is particularly interesting about the Crow version is the idea of the tower as a tree stump. This suggests an even grander, more ancient world, a time when trees were so massive they could touch the sky. It ties the monolith to a primordial forest, a world of giants, and adds another layer of awe and mystery to its origins. The tower becomes a remnant of a lost, mythical age. While the details differ, bears, serpents, sky beings, a powerful, unifying theme emerges from all these stories. The tower, in every narrative, is a place of refuge. It is a symbol of divine intervention and protection. It represents a sacred connection between the earth and the sky, a ladder to the heavens. Whether it's 7 sisters, a brother and sister with a turtle, or 2 lost boys, the protagonists are always innocent, vulnerable, and in desperate need of help. The monolith is their salvation, a physical manifestation of the Great Spirit's love and power. This shared core belief is what makes the site so profoundly sacred to so many different tribes. It wasn't just a rock, it was a promise. A promise that in times of great peril, a higher power would intervene to protect the people. These variations are not contradictions. They are reflections of the unique cultural landscapes of each tribe. The Cheyenne story, with its direct link to the Pleiades, emphasizes a deep astronomical knowledge and a cosmology where earthly events are mirrored in the stars. The Arapaho tale, with its sacred turtle, underscores a belief system rooted in the spiritual power of animals and sacred objects. The Crow version, imagining the tower as a giant tree stump, speaks to a mythology of an ancient, grander world. Each story is like a different facet of the same brilliant diamond, catching the light in its own unique way. It shows how a single, powerful place can inspire a multitude of spiritual interpretations, each one valid and deeply meaningful to the people who tell it. The monolith becomes a canvas upon which each tribe painted its own understanding of the universe, its own relationship with the divine, and its own history of survival and hope. This incredible diversity of narratives highlights a fundamental truth about indigenous spirituality. It is not a monolith itself. It is a living, breathing tapestry of stories, beliefs, and practices, all intimately tied to the land. Devil's Tower, or Bear Lodge, as many tribes know it, is a perfect example of this. It's a focal point, a spiritual center, where countless threads of tradition, history, and belief converge. Understanding these different stories doesn't diminish the power of any single one. Instead, it enriches our appreciation for the site as a whole. It allows us to see the tower not just as a geological wonder, but as a library of sacred knowledge, with each tribe holding a precious volume. It's a powerful reminder that the land itself can be a storyteller, speaking in a language that is understood in the heart and interpreted through the unique lens of culture and experience. Thank you so much for joining me today as we explored the rich tapestry of legends surrounding this sacred tower. It's truly humbling to see how one place can hold so much meaning for so many. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the stories etched into our world. Your support means everything and allows us to continue sharing these important narratives. We'll see you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the mysteries of our world. Today, we venture into Chapter 5. The Tower of the Giants. Prepare to have your perceptions of history and myth completely standing before formations like Devil's Tower. It's easy to feel small, insignificant. But what if I told you that ancient stories don't just see a rock, but the remnants of a world far grander than our own? Let's peel back the layers of geology and dive into the deep well of myth. For centuries, long before modern science offered its explanations, people looked at these colossal pillars and saw something else entirely. They saw evidence of giants, not the clumsy brutes of fairy tales, but beings of immense power and scale, who walked the earth in a forgotten age. One of the most captivating tales whispers that these stone columns aren't rock at all. They are the petrified remains of a primeval forest. Trees so vast, they scrape the heavens. Imagine a world where the trees were mountains, their bark the texture of basalt, their rings holding the memory of young. In this vision, we aren't just looking at a geological wonder. We're staring at the tombstone of a forest that belonged to giants. These stories come from a deep, intuited place. They attempt to explain the unexplainable, to give meaning to a landscape that defies everyday logic. When you see those perfect hexagonal columns, doesn't a part of you wonder? They look almost grown, almost biological. The myth of petrified trees taps into that very feeling, suggesting a world where nature operated on a scale we can no longer comprehend. But who would have lived in such a forest? This is where we encounter the giants themselves. In many indigenous cosmologies, these aren't fearsome monsters. Far from Italiano. They are often revered as the first people, or the ancient ancestors. They were the original architects of the land, shapers of mountains and carvers of valleys. The stories say these beings were so immense that their footsteps created lakes. Their slumbering bodies became mountain ranges. The great stone towers we see today, some legends claim they were their homes, their fortresses, or perhaps even their tools. They were beings intertwined with the very fabric of the earth, a part of the natural world, not separate from it. This perspective is profoundly different from the European view of giants as chaotic destroyers. Here, they are foundational figures, creators, Their stories are not cautionary tales, but origin stories. They explain not just the landscape, but the lineage of the people who have lived there for millennia. The giants are their kin, their ancient grandparents. Think about the implications. If the giants were ancestors, then their works, these incredible stone towers, are not just geological curiosities. They are sacred monuments. They are heirlooms passed down from the dawn of time. This transforms a place from a tourist attraction into a cathedral of ancestral memory. Let's explore a specific narrative connected to Devil's Tower itself. For many Plains tribes, including the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Kiowa, the tower is a place of immense spiritual power. One of the most beautiful stories tells of 7 young girls who were playing in the woods. Suddenly, they were chased by giant bears. Frightened, the girls scrambled onto a low-lying rock and prayed to the Great Spirit for help. In answer to their prayers, the rock began to grow, rising higher and higher into the sky, lifting the girls out of the bears' reach. The furious bears clawed at the sides of the rising tower, their massive talons carving the deep vertical grooves we see today. The tower continued to rise until the girls were pushed into the sky, where they became the 7 stars of the Pleiades constellation. In this story, the tower is a symbol of salvation, a divine intervention. The marks on its side are not random geological fissures, but the sacred scars of a dramatic celestial event. The giants here are the bears, forces of nature, and the tower is the protective response from an even greater power. It connects the earth directly to the heavens, making the stone a literal stairway to the stars. This blending of myth and mystery is what makes these places so powerful. It's where science and spirit meet. Geologists can explain columnar basalt and magma intrusion, and their explanations are fascinating. But they don't negate the human story. They do unerase the thousands of years of spiritual connection and meaning that have been woven into the stone. The idea of giant ancestors gives us a different lens through which to view our world. It encourages us to see the landscape not as a static, inanimate thing, but as a living entity with a deep and dramatic history. It asks us to listen to the stories the rocks have to tell. Stories of creation, of protection of beings who walked a younger, wilder earth. When you stand in the shadow of one of these towers, let yourself feel that ancient wonder. Imagine the world as it might have been a world of colossal trees and the ancestor giants who tended them. Imagine the ground shaking with their footsteps and the sky filled with their songs. These myths are not just fantasy. They're a form of deep memory, a way of understanding our place in a story that is far older and larger than we can imagine. They remind us that the world is filled with magic, if only we know how to look for it. The Tower of the Giants isn't just a place on a map. It's a doorway to a forgotten epoch, a testament to the enduring power of story to shape our reality. Thank you so much for joining me on this chapter of our exploration. The world is full of wonders, and the greatest ones often lie hidden in the stories we tell. If you enjoyed this journey into myth and mystery, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. It helps us continue to uncover these incredible tales. Until next time, keep looking up and keep wondering. Beyond the realm of myth and legend, the earth itself tells a story written not in words, but in stone. Welcome to the scientific chapter of Devil's Tower, where we trade ancient tales for geological time. For centuries, this colossal structure has puzzled not just storytellers, but scientists as well. How did such a perfect, fluted tower rise from the rolling plains? The most widely accepted theory takes us back some 50 million years, deep beneath the surface of the earth. Imagine a world long before humans, a time when this landscape was buried under layers of sedimentary rock. Deep in the earth's crust, a plume of molten rock, or magma, began to push its way upward. Unlike a violent volcanic eruption that spews lava across the surface, this magma never broke through. Instead, it stalled, pooling in a subterranean chamber, a blister of liquid fire trapped within the cooler, surrounding rock. Here, insulated from the world above, the magma began an incredibly slow process of cooling. This slow cooling is the secret to the tower's magnificent structure. As the molten rock lost its heat over thousands, perhaps millions of years, it began to shrink and solidify. Think of how mud cracks as it dries in the sun. A similar process, called columnar jointing, happened here on a titanic scale. The contracting mass of cooling magma fractured, not randomly, but into near-perfect geometric shapes, mostly hexagonal columns, stretching from the base to the top. It was nature's own architectural blueprint, executed in solid rock. These columns, packed tightly together like a bundle of colossal pencils, formed the core of what we see today. For eons, this incredible formation remained hidden, a secret held within the earth. Above it, the softer sedimentary rock sandstones, shales, and siltstones formed the landscape, but the forces of nature are relentless. Wind and water, the patient sculptors of our planet, began their work. Over millions of years, the relentless process of erosion began to strip away these softer outer layers. Rain washed away silt, rivers carved through sandstone, and wind scoured the plains. Inch by inch, millennium by millennium, the land was lowered. As the surrounding rock vanished, the much harder, more resistant igneous rock of the tower was gradually revealed. It was like unwrapping a gift from the deep earth. The same forces that wore away the plains were powerless against this dense crystalline, phonolite, porphyry. So, it emerged, standing proud against the skyline, its grooved columns a testament to its fiery, subterranean birth. What we witness is not something that grew up asterisk from the ground, but something that was uncovered from within it. The surrounding land has eroded away, leaving the resilient heart of an ancient magma intrusion exposed to the sky. This process is still happening. The debris field of broken columns you see scattered around the base of the tower is Unte. From its construction, it's from its slow, steady deconstruction. Frost, ice, and gravity continue to pry columns loose. A constant reminder that even stone is not eternal. The Belle Forchi River, winding its way nearby, continues to carry away sediment, ensuring the tower's prominence on the landscape for ages to come. The scientific story is one of immense pressure, intense heat, and the patient, unstoppable power of time and erosion. Yet, here's where the story takes another fascinating turn. Even with all our scientific tools and understanding, the Earth doesn't give up all its secrets. While the igneous intrusion and erosion theory is the most widely accepted explanation, it's not the only one. The exact shape and nature of that original magma intrusion is still a subject of debate among geologists. Was it a laccolith? A mushroom-shaped intrusion that warped the rock layers above it? Or was it a volcanic plug, the hardened throat of an ancient, long-eroded volcano? Some geologists have pointed out features that don't perfectly align with either theory. The near-vertical orientation of the columns, for instance, suggests a very specific and uniform cooling process that's hard to model perfectly. The lack of significant metamorphic evidence in the surrounding, now eroded rock also raises questions. Each piece of data adds a new layer to the puzzle. Scientists analyze the mineral composition, map the fracture patterns, and study the surrounding geology, all in an attempt to read this stone manuscript with perfect clarity. And so, we find ourselves at a beautiful crossroads. We have the powerful, resonant stories of the tribes who have revered this place for generations, seeing in it a sacred connection to the cosmos. And we have the equally compelling story from science, a narrative of deep time, planetary forces, and molten rock. But even within that scientific story, there is an admission of humility, a recognition that our understanding is incomplete. No single geologist can say with absolute 100% certainty exactly how every detail of Devil's Tower came to be. It remains, in every sense of the word, a wonder, a natural monument that continues to inspire awe and provoke curiosity. It is a riddle written in stone, and perhaps the fact that we haven't fully solved it is part of its enduring magic. It reminds us that our planet still holds mysteries, and that there is always more to learn, more to discover. The Earth speaks, and we are still learning to interpret its language. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the geology of Devil's Tower. It's a place where myth and science meet, and both leave you speechless. If you've enjoyed this journey, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more adventures into the stories our world has to tell. We'll see you in the next chapter. Welcome bike history lovers and mystery seekers. Today, we're journeying back to the 19th century, a time of sweeping change and boundless exploration across the American West. Imagine vast, uncharted territories, where every river bend and mountain range held a new discovery. For the first European and American explorers pushing into what is now northeastern Wyoming, one landmark would stop them in their tracks, igniting a mixture of awe, confusion, and a primal sense of fear. This is the story of their first encounter with the geological marvel we now call Devil's Tower. As we step into the 1800s, the plains are alive with the sounds of wagon wheels, the calls of fur trappers, and the hushed whispers of pioneers. These were rugged individuals, accustomed to the grand and often harsh beauty of the frontier. They had seen towering mountains, vast canyons, and endless prairies, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared them for the sight of the tower. Picture this. You're a trapper, perhaps a man like Warren of Ferris, who documented his travels in the 1830s. You've been following the Belforche River for days, navigating through the rolling hills and pinnated landscape. Suddenly, you round a bend, and there it is, a colossal stone pillar, erupting from the earth like a titan's fist. Its sides aren't sloped like a mountain. They are sheer, almost vertical, carved with deep, parallel grooves that stretch from its base to its flat, truncated top. The local indigenous tribes, who had lived in the shadow of this formation for generations, had their own sacred names and stories for it. They called it names that translated to Bear's Lodge, Bear's Tippy, or Tree Rock. When the early explorers and trappers encountered it, they often adopted a version of these names. The most common term they used was the Bear Lodge Butte. The name itself, Bear Lodge, hinted at the powerful, almost mythical presence the structure held, echoing the legends they heard from the Lakota, Cheyenne, and other tribes. It wasn't just a rock. It was a dwelling for a creature of immense power. The initial reaction was one of sheer, unadulterated awe. How could something so massive, so perfectly and strangely formed, even exist? It defied all geological understanding of the time. It didn't look like a volcano, nor did it resemble any butte or mesa they had ever encountered. The scale was simply from a distance, it was a landmark to navigate by. Up close, it was a humbling, almost terrifying spectacle. Letters and journals from this period are filled with descriptions that struggle to capture its essence. Men who were not known for poetic language tried to find the words. They compared it to a colossal, petrified tree stump from a long-dead, gigantic forest. Others saw it as a fortress, a citadel not built by nature, but by the hands of an ancient, unknown race of giants. The precise, columnar jointing looked too intentional, too architectural, to be a mere accident of geology. It was as if someone, or something, had meticulously carved it. This sense of artificiality sparked countless theories and campfire debates. Was it a watchtower for a lost civilization? The remnants of a biblical tower, like Babel, left stranded in the American wilderness. The pioneers were practical people, but in the face of the tower, their imaginations ran wild. The sheer impossibility of it left room for every kind of speculation, from the divine to the demonic. But beyond the awe and the intellectual curiosity, there was another, more unsettling feeling that many described. It was the feeling of being watched. As settlers began to establish small homesteads in the surrounding valleys, they spoke of the tower's constant, silent presence. It loomed over the landscape, visible 4 miles in every direction. No matter where you were, its silhouette was on the horizon, a silent observer to their daily struggles and triumphs. Some wrote about feeling a strange energy emanating from it, a palpable sense that the rock itself was alive. They would glance up from their plows or while tending their cattle and feel a chill, as if the tower's stony face was a single, unblinking eye. It wasn't necessarily a malicious feeling, but it was unnerving. It was a constant reminder of the immense, ancient power of the land they were now trying to tame. They were guests here, and the tower was the landlord, ancient and indifferent. This feeling was compounded by the stories they heard from the Native American tribes. For the tribes, the tower was a sacred site, a place of vision, quests, prayer, and ceremony. It was a place where the physical and spiritual worlds connected. They spoke of the Great Bear, whose claws had scraped the sides of the rock as it chased maidens to the summit. These stories, filled with powerful spirits and epic struggles, only added to the mystique and the sense of unease for the newcomers. The settlers might not have believed the stories literally, but they could feel the spiritual weight of the place. They knew they were treading on holy ground. Think of Colonel Richard Irving Dodge, who led a scientific expedition in 1875. He was a military man, a pragmatist, yet, in his writings, he described the tower with a sense of wonder that bordered on the spiritual. He was one of the first to officially document it for the U.S. government, and his report helped bring wider attention to this geological anomaly. His detailed measurements and descriptions were scientific, but the tone of his writing betrayed a deeper fascination. He, too, felt the tower's powerful presence, calling it one of the most remarkable peaks in this or any country. The name Devil's Tower, which would eventually become its official designation, likely emerged from this era of mixed fear and wonder. While the exact origin is debated, it reflects the settlers' attempt to name something that seemed beyond the realm of the natural world. In a time when the unknown was often equated with the diabolical, naming it after a powerful, supernatural entity made a certain kind of sense. It was a name born not of malice, but of profound, overwhelming awe. It acknowledged that this was a place of power, a place that commanded respect and even a little bit of fear. So, as the 19th century drew to a close, the tower had been transformed in the American imagination. It was no longer an unknown shape on a distant horizon. It was the Bear Lodge Butte, a landmark and a legend. It was a geological puzzle for scientists, a source of inspiration for storytellers, and a silent, watchful guardian for the settlers in its shadow. The first European encounters with the tower were not just about discovering a piece of rock. They were about confronting the sheer, untamable power of the American West and the deep, spiritual history that was embedded in its landscape. It was a meeting of cultures, of worldviews, and of humanity's smallness in the face of nature's grandeur. Thanks so much for joining me on this historical journey back in time. The story of Devil's Tower is just getting started, and in our next chapter, we'll explore how this remote monolith became America's very first national monument. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. See you in the next chapter. Have you ever heard of Devil's Tower? That massive, striking rock formation in Wyoming. You've probably seen it in photos, or even in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. But what if I told you its name? The one we all know is based on a huge misunderstanding, a translation error that completely changed its meaning and disrespected its sacred history. Let us dive into the story of how this incredible place got a name that could be further from the truth. To understand the story, we need to go back to a time before it was called Devil's Tower. For countless generations, this place has been sacred to numerous indigenous tribes, including the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Kiowa. They have many names for it, like Bear Lodge, Bear's Tipi, or Tree Rock. Each name is tied to powerful creation stories and spiritual traditions. For these tribes, the tower isn't just a geological wonder. It's a place of worship, a site for ceremonies, and a physical connection to the divine. Imagine a place so holy that it forms the very core of your cultural and spiritual identity. That's what this tower is to them. It's a place of reverence, power, and creation, often associated with a benevolent, powerful spirit, the bear. So, how did a place called Bear Lodge become Devil's Tower? The change happened in 1875. An expedition led by a U.S. Army colonel named Richard Irving Dodge was exploring the area. His interpreter, apparently struggling with the nuances of the local language, heard a name that he translated as Bad God's Tower. Now, let's pause and think about this translation. In many indigenous cultures, the concept of good versus evil as a black and white duality doesn't exist in the same way it does in Western, Christian-influenced thought. A bad god didn't necessarily mean a malevolent, satanic figure. It could mean a powerful, unpredictable, or even dangerous spirit, one that commands respect and caution, but isn't inherently evil. Think of it like the difference between a dangerous storm and a demonic force. Both are powerful and to be respected, but one is a natural force, and the other is a symbol of pure evil. Colonel Dodge, coming from a Western cultural background, heard Bad God's Tower and immediately made a leap. In his mind, Bad God equated to one thing: the devil. without fully understanding the cultural context. He officially recorded the name as Devil's Tower in his survey documents, and just like that, the name stuck. It was printed on maps, used in government reports, and became the official designation. This single act of mistranslation stripped the site of its sacred context and slapped a label on it that was not only inaccurate but deeply offensive. A place of profound spiritual significance was now associated with the ultimate symbol of evil in the Christian world. This wasn't just a simple mistake. It was a profound cultural clash. The name Devil's Tower reflects a fundamental misunderstanding of indigenous spirituality. It imposed a foreign, dualistic worldview onto a place that held a much more complex and nuanced meaning. The label devil implies something to be feared and shunned, the complete opposite of the reverence and connection the tribes felt. Imagine your church, synagogue, or mosque being renamed the lair of evil by outsiders who didn't understand your faith. That's the level of disrespect we're talking about. The name became a symbol of the broader colonial experience, where indigenous cultures, languages, and beliefs were often misinterpreted, dismissed, or actively suppressed. For over a century, the name Devil's Tower has been a painful reminder of this history. Indigenous leaders and community members have long campaigned to change it. They've proposed reverting to one of the traditional names, like Bear Lodge, to honor the site's true heritage. This isn't just about political correctness. It's about restoring dignity to a sacred place. It's about acknowledging a historical wrong and taking a step toward reconciliation. The debate is ongoing. Proponents of a name change argue it as a necessary act of respect for the tribes to whom the tower is sacred. They point out that many other places in the United States have had their colonial or offensive names changed, like Mount McKinley, which was restored to its indigenous name, Denali. On the other side, some people resist the change. They argued that the name Devil's Tower has its own history now. Over 140 years of it. It's recognized worldwide and holds a place in popular culture. They worry that changing the name would cause confusion and erase a part of the region's more recent history. This conflict highlights a deeper question. Whose history gets prioritized? The thousands of years of indigenous spiritual connection, or the last century and a half of colonial naming? It's a battle between preserving a painful legacy and correcting it. For the tribes, the name is a constant, public display of disrespect, a brandishing of ignorance on a place they hold most dear. This story forces us to look at the power of names. A name isn't just a label. It carries meaning, history, and power. The name Devil's Tower carries a legacy of misunderstanding and cultural erasure. The effort to change it is an effort to reclaim a narrative, to tell a more complete and accurate story of this incredible landmark. It is a story that asks us to listen to the voices that were ignored in 1875 and to consider what it means to truly respect a place and its people. The tower itself stands silent, a massive witness to all of this. But the conversation around its name speaks volumes about our ongoing journey to understand and reconcile with our past. So, the next time you see a picture of this majestic formation, remember its story. Remember that for many, it's not a Devil's Tower at all. It's Bear Lodge, a sacred place of creation, ceremony, and enduring spiritual power. And maybe, think about the importance of the names we use and the stories they tell. Thank you so much for watching and exploring this important piece of history with me. What are your thoughts on the name change debate? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this story interesting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the stories behind the places we think we know. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey. Today, in Chapter 9, we delve into the spiritual heart of this land, exploring the sacred ceremonies and pilgrimages that have sanctified this ground for centuries, long before the concept of national parks even existed. Long before maps were drawn by outsiders, this place was a cathedral built by nature, a destination for countless native tribes who came here not as tourists, but as pilgrims. This wasn't just a landmark. It was, and still is, a place to pray, to connect, to find meaning. Imagine, for a moment, the world before the park boundaries were set. The air here was thick with intention. This was a site for some of the most profound spiritual practices. Young men and women would embark on vision quests, seeking guidance and purpose for their lives. They would come to the base of this immense natural altar, fasting and praying for days, hoping for a sign from the Creator, a glimpse into their destiny, the solitude, the stark beauty, the sheer power of the landscape. It was the perfect crucible for self-discovery and spiritual rebirth. And then there were the larger gatherings, the vibrant, powerful ceremonies like the sun dance. Picture it. Entire communities converging here, their camps spreading out across the plains. The rhythmic, hypnotic hum of drums would echo off the rock faces, a sound that was both a prayer and a celebration of life. The chants, sung in unison, would rise into the vast sky, carrying the hopes and gratitude of a people deeply connected to their world. These weren't just rituals. They were affirmations of their worldview, a way to restore balance to the community and the cosmos. The sensory experience would have been overwhelming. The sharp, clean scent of burning sage, used for purification, would drift through the air, cleansing the space and the spirit. The whisper of the wind as it moved through the tall prairie grass would sound like the voices of ancestors, sharing ancient wisdom. Every element, the earth beneath their feet, the sky above their heads, the rock that stood as a silent witness, as part of the ceremony. Offerings were made, small tokens of respect and gratitude left at the base of the rock. These weren't grand gestures, but humble acknowledgments of the sacredness of the place. A pinch of tobacco, a carefully crafted beadwork, a prayer tied into a piece of cloth. Each one was a physical manifestation of a spiritual connection, a thread linking the human world to the divine. That tradition, that deep-seated reverence, hasn't vanished. It continues today, a quiet but powerful testament to the enduring spirit of the first peoples of this land. As you walk the trails, you might notice something that seems out of place at first glance. Small pieces of red cloth tied to the branches of the pines and cottonwoods. These aren't litter, they're prayer cloths, modern-day offerings left by native people. Each fluttering piece of fabric is a prayer, a memory, an honorific to the ancestors who walked this path before them. They are a visible sign that this is still a living, breathing, sacred site. The red cloth, often representing the lifeblood of the people and their connection to the earth, flutters in the same wind that carried the ancient chants. They are a poignant reminder that while the name of this place may have changed on a map, its true identity as a spiritual center remains unbroken. They speak of resilience, of a faith that has weathered the storms of history and continues to find solace and strength in this hallowed ground. These ceremonies and pilgrimages are the invisible architecture of this landscape. They infuse the physical rock with layers of meaning, transforming it from a geological wonder into a spiritual icon. The sun dances, the vision quests, the offerings, they are the stories etched into the very soul of this place. Stories that began long before our records and continue to be written today. They remind us that some places are more than just beautiful scenery. They are repositories of faith, history, and human spirit. When we beseech, we are not just walking through a park. We are stepping into a sanctuary. By understanding the long history of worship here, we can approach this place with the respect and humility it deserves. We become more than just visitors. We become quiet witnesses to a sacred tradition that stretches back through uncounted generations. The prayer cloths in the trees are not just for the ancestors. They are a message for us, too. They invite us to listen, to feel the deep pulse of this land, and to acknowledge the profound spiritual legacy that is all around us. Thank you for joining me on this deeper exploration. It's truly an honor to share these stories with you. If this chapter resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support allows us to continue bringing these important histories to light. We'll see you next time. Hello, and welcome back to our journey through the wonders of the world. Today, we're venturing into a realm where stone meets sky, where ancient wisdom is etched into the very landscape. We're exploring Chapter 10, The Tower and the Heavens. Imagine a colossal stone pillar, clawed by a giant bear, rising dramatically from the plains. This is Devil's Tower, or more appropriately, Bear Lodge, as it's known to many indigenous peoples. But this monumental formation is more than just a geological marvel. For countless generations, it has been a sacred clock, a celestial calendar, and a profound connection between the earthly and the divine. Long before modern telescopes and digital calendars, ancient astronomers, keen observers of the sky, recognized something extraordinary about this place. They saw that the tower wasn't just sitting on the land, it was in dialogue with the cosmos. Many indigenous cultures across the Great Plains, including the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho, have deep-rooted connections to this site. Their oral traditions are rich with stories of its creation, often involving a great bear and a group of children who are lifted to safety, becoming the stars of the Pleiades cluster. This isn't just a myth, it's a star map, a mnemonic device that links the terrestrial landmark to a specific celestial body. This story alone tells us that the connection between the tower and the stars has been recognized for centuries, perhaps millennia. The most fascinating aspect is how precisely the tower aligns with key celestial events. It functions as a massive, natural gnomon, the part of a sundial that casts a shadow. As the Earth journeys around the sun, the silhouette of the tower against the horizon marks the changing of the seasons. Think about the solstices. During the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, the sun rises and sets at its most northern points. From specific sacred vantage points known to tribal elders, the sun appears to interact directly with the tower's peak or its distinct columns. The same is true for the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, when the sun's journey across the sky is at its lowest in most southern arc. These alignments were not just casual observations. They were vital for survival and for cultural and spiritual life. The solstices signaled when to plant, when to hunt specific animals, and when to prepare for the coming winter. They were the cornerstones of the annual cycle, and the tower was the unwavering marker that announced these crucial shifts. It was a reliable, unmoving calendar gifted by the Creator. The ability to predict these dates was a form of sacred knowledge, passed down through generations of sky watchers and storytellers. This knowledge empowered the community, ensuring their harmony with the rhythms of the natural world. Beyond the solstices, the tower also marks the equinoxes, 2 days of the year when day and night are of equal length. These moments of perfect balance were also significant, oftentimes for ceremony and reflection. Imagine standing at a place your ancestors stood, watching the sun rise in perfect alignment with a notch in the tower's rock face, knowing that on this day, balance is restored to the world. It's a powerful, grounding experience that connects you not just to the cosmos, but to a long line of people who witnessed the exact same event. This wasn't science for the sake of science. It was a deeply spiritual practice, an affirmation of the order and beauty of the universe. And then there are the stars. We mentioned the Pleiades, the cluster of 7 stars, often called the Seven Sisters. The story of the girls who became the stars is a powerful one, but the connection runs even deeper. The heliacal rising of the Pleiades, that is the first day they become visible in the pre-dawn sky after being hidden by the sun. Esclera was another critical marker. For many tribes, this event, which happens in early summer, signaled the start of a new year, of the time for important ceremonies. The tower, standing sentinel on the horizon, provided the perfect landmark to frame this celestial reappearance. It wasn't just a story about the stars, it was an active, annual reunion between the children in the sky and the sacred place from which they ascended. So, how did they do it? How did ancient people, without complex instruments, achieve such accuracy? The answer lies in patience, multi-generational observation, and a profound understanding of their environment. They used what we might call horizon-based astronomy. They established observation, point-specific rocks, hills, or other natural features from which to watch the sky year after year. From these fixed points, the rising and setting positions of the sun, moon, and key stars against the silhouette of the tower became predictable. The unique, fluted columns of the tower itself could act as a celestial ruler, with different notches and peaks marking different dates. This made the tower far more than a calendar. It became a temple. It was, and still is, a place where the boundary between the physical world and the spirit world feels incredibly thin. The verticality of the tower itself is symbolic, reaching from the earth, the realm of humanity, towards the heavens, the realm of the Creator and the Star People. The ceremonies held in its shadow were not just timed by the celestial events. They were empowered by them. The alignment of the sun or stars with this sacred place was seen as a sign of divine favor, a moment when the cosmos was in harmony and prayers were more easily heard. It was a meeting place between sky and earth, a focal point of cosmic energy. Today, this ancient wisdom is facing new challenges, but it's also experiencing a resurgence. Indigenous groups are working to protect the sanctity of Bear Lodge and to educate others about its cultural and astronomical significance. The voluntary climbing closure during the month of June, a time of many important ceremonies, is one example of this effort to honor the tower's sacred nature. As visitors, we have a responsibility to approach this place with respect, to understand that we are standing in a church, an observatory, and a library, all at once, a library whose books are written in stone and starlight. The tower and the heavens teach us a valuable lesson. They remind us that, for much of human history, science and spirituality were not separate disciplines. They were two sides of the same coin, two ways of understanding our place in a vast and wondrous universe. By looking up at the sky from the base of this incredible monolith, we are connecting to an ancient, living tradition of stargazing, storytelling, and reverence for the natural world. We are seeing the world not just through our own eyes, but through the eyes of countless generations who saw the tower as a bridge to the cosmos. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of Bear Lodge and its celestial secrets. It is a powerful reminder that some of the most profound observatories are unbuilt of metal and glass, but of stone, patience, and spirit. If you enjoyed this journey, please give this video a like. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, keep looking up. Hello, and welcome back to our journey into America's most mysterious corners. Today, we're venturing back in time to the days of westward expansion, a period defined by courage, hardship, and a landscape filled with As settlers pushed into untamed territories, they weren't just battling the elements, they were encountering things that defied simple explanation. This is Chapter 11. Early settlers and strange lights. Imagine this. You've traveled for months, leaving everything you knew behind. You've finally staked your claim, built a small cabin at the foot of a towering, silent mountain. Your days are long and hard, filled with the practical tasks of survival. But as dusk settles, a new reality emerges. From your small window, you see it, a faint, pulsing light high up on the summit, where no person should be. It appears, flickers with an otherworldly glow, and then vanishes, leaving you to wonder if your tired eyes are playing tricks on you. This wasn't an isolated experience. Across the frontier, from the dark woods of the Appalachians to the vast, lonely plains, similar stories began to surface. Settlers, often miles from their nearest neighbors, would gather and share hushed accounts. They spoke of spook lights or ghost lights that would dance along ridges or hover over desolate valleys. These weren't campfires. They moved too quickly, too erratically. They seemed to possess an intelligence, a purpose that was both captivating and deeply unsettling. Was it a natural phenomenon? Something like swamp gas or electrical discharges? Perhaps. But these explanations didn't account for the other things people were experiencing. Along with the light came the sounds. On still, moonless nights, a faint, rhythmic drumming would carry on the wind, seeming to emanate from the very heart of the mountains. It was a deep, resonant beat, a sound that felt ancient and impossibly close. Some described it as a steady, ceremonial rhythm, while others heard it as a frantic, chaotic pounding, as if signaling some unknown event. Settlers would lie awake in their beds, listening to this spectral percussion, their minds racing. Who, or what, could be making that sound in the dead of night? So far from any known settlement, these stories of lights and sounds began to weave themselves into the fabric of frontier life. They became a part of the local folklore, cautionary tales told to children and whispered among adults. The mountains and shadowed valleys took on a personality of their own. They weren't just land to be settled, they were ancient places with secrets. Places that seemed to be watching the newcomers with a silent, patient gaze. The tales grew more specific, more unnerving. People didn't just see lights, they started seeing figures. From the small, burgeoning towns that dotted the landscape, tales circulated of strange silhouettes seen against the skyline on the highest peaks. These weren't animals, and they didn't move like people. They were described as tall and slender, sometimes seeming to glide rather than walk. They would appear for a moment at sunset, stark outlines against the fading light, before melting back into the rock. Who were these figures? Were they ghosts of those who had passed in this harsh new land, or were they something else entirely? The local Native American tribes, who had inhabited these lands for centuries, had their own stories. Their legends often spoke of mountain spirits, ancient guardians of the sacred peaks. They treated these high places with a deep reverence and caution, understanding them as portals to another world, a place where the veil between the physical and the spiritual was thin. To them, the lights and figures weren't strange. They were a part of the natural, spiritual order of the land in order. The new settlers were only just beginning to glimpse. This created a fascinating intersection of cultures and beliefs. On one hand, you had the pragmatic, deeply religious settlers. Their worldview was shaped by the Bible and a belief in a clear division between the divine and the demonic. When they saw these unexplainable things, they often interpreted them through that lens. Was it a test of their faith? A sign of a cursed land? Or perhaps a heavenly portent? Many journal entries from this period reflect this internal struggle of deep-seated curiosity mixed with a profound fear of the unknown and the unholy. On the other hand, you had the rich, complex spiritual traditions of the indigenous peoples. Their folklore wasn't just a collection of scary stories. It was a living history, a guide to coexisting with the powerful spiritual forces that animated the world around them. The drumming might be the heart of the mountain. The lights, the spirits of the ancestors, the figures on the summit were not to be feared, but to be respected. They were a reminder that humans were not the sole masters of this domain. As these two worlds collided on the frontier, a uniquely American brand of supernaturalism was born. It was a blend of European ghost lore and indigenous spirituality, all filtered through the lens of the raw, untamed wilderness. The frontier wasn't just a physical place. It became a psychological one. It was a space where the certainties of the civilized world dissolved, and the possibility of anything spirits lost souls. Ancient beings felt incredibly real. Consider the mindset of a lone trapper or a family in an isolated homestead. Their survival depended on reading the environment to weather, the tracks of animals, the flow of a river. They were intensely observant. So when they reported seeing something inexplicable, it carried weight. These weren't fanciful tales from city folk. They were first-hand accounts from people whose lives depended on their perception. They would describe how the lights seemed to react to their presence, sometimes drawing closer as if in curiosity, other times retreating as if startled. The tales of the summit figures were particularly potent. They fueled a sense of awe and dread. Was the mountain occupied, and if so, by whom? Some brave, or perhaps foolish? Souls attempted to investigate. Groups of men would form makeshift posses, determined to climb the summit and get to the bottom of the mystery. But their efforts were almost always in vain. As they ascended, the weather would mysteriously turn. Sudden, thick fogs would roll in, disorienting them. Strange winds would howl through the canyons, extinguishing their lanterns and chilling them to the bone. The drumming would grow louder, more intense, seemingly coming from all directions at once. Most would turn back, convinced that the mountain itself was actively repelling them, protecting its secrets. Those who claimed to have gotten close described a powerful feeling of being watched, an overwhelming sense of dread that forced them to retreat. No one ever found a campfire, a shelter, or any physical evidence of human occupation on these summits. The figures, the lights, and the drumming remained an enigma, a puzzle without a solution. This period in American history highlights a profound human question. How do we react when faced with something that shatters our understanding of the world? The settlers on the frontier were confronted with this question every single night. Their stories are more than just ghost stories. They are a testament to the enduring power of mystery and the human need to find meaning in the unexplainable. They remind us that the world is, and has always been, far stranger and more wondrous than we often care to admit. The American frontier was not just a line on a map. It was the edge of reality, where folklore and first-hand experience merged, creating a legacy of supernatural wonder that continues to fascinate us to this day. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of the past. The stories of these early settlers are a vital part of our collective history, reminding us of the mysteries that lie just beyond the firelight. If you enjoy this chapter, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more journeys into the unknown. We'd love to have you with us. See you next time. Imagine it's 1906. America is young, and President Theodore Roosevelt, a man known for his larger-than-life personality and love for the untamed wilderness, makes a groundbreaking decision. With a stroke of his pen, he declares a strange, colossal rock formation in Wyoming as the nation's very first national monument. He calls it Devil's Tower. For many, this was a moment of triumph for a bold step, to preserve a natural wonder for all future generations. But what seemed like a simple act of preservation would soon ignite a complex and deeply emotional controversy that continues to this day. The stone remained the same, but its story was about to get a whole lot more complicated. This declaration was made under the new Antiquities Act, a landmark piece of legislation that gave presidents the power to protect historic landmarks, historic and prehistoric structures, and other objects of historic or scientific interest. From a conservationist's perspective, Devil's Tower was the perfect candidate. Its unique, geological formation, a stunning example of columnar jointing, was a scientific marvel. Geologists were fascinated by how this igneous intrusion had been exposed over millions of years of erosion. For Roosevelt and the burgeoning conservation movement, protecting it was a no-brainer. It was about saving a piece of America's natural heritage from potential commercial exploitation, ensuring it would remain pristine for scientific study and public enjoyment. The intent was pure, to place this geological masterpiece under the protective wing of the federal government, safeguarding it for posterity. But here's where the story takes a turn. While Washington, D.C. celebrated this new monument, a very different story was being told on the plains of Wyoming. For centuries, long before the name Devil's Tower ever existed, this place was known by other names: Bear Lodge, Tree Rock, or the Great Gray Horn, for over 20 Native American tribes, including the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho. This was not just a rock. It was, and still is, a sacred site, a place of immense spiritual power. It's a place for prayer, for fasting, for vision quests, and for sacred ceremonies that are central to their cultural and religious identity. The very grooves running down its sides are part of their origin stories. Often described as the claw marks of a giant bear, it's a place where heaven and earth meet, a physical link to the creator and the spirit world. So, when the U.S. government declared it a national monument, they weren't just protecting a rock, they were asserting control over a church. Imagine if a foreign government suddenly took control of the Vatican or Mecca, designated it a public park, and invited tourists to climb all over it. That's the magnitude of what happened from the perspective of the tribes. Suddenly, their most sacred site was under federal management. Its name officially changed to one many found offensive, and its purpose redefined as a tourist attraction and a scientific specimen. The act of preservation, seen as so noble by one culture, was seen as an act of desecration by another. The clash was inevitable. The stone itself hadn't changed, but the meanings projected onto it were now in direct conflict. This new designation brought a flood of new visitors. Tourism boomed, and with tourism came a new kind of activity: recreational climbing. The tower, with its vertical cracks and challenging faces, became a world-renowned destination for rock climbers. By the mid-20th century, hundreds, then thousands, of climbers were ascending the tower each year. They hammered pitons into the rock, bolted routers, and saw the tower as the ultimate physical challenge, a test of strength, skill, and courage. For the climbing community, the tower was a natural gymnasium, a place to push their limits and connect with nature through exhilarating physical effort. Their connection was real, passionate, and deeply personal. They, too, saw the tower as a special place, one that offered a unique and powerful experience. And here we have the heart of the controversy. Two deeply held, yet fundamentally different, views of the same place. On one side, you have Native American tribes who see climbing as a profound act of disrespect. For them, it's akin to someone scaling the walls of a cathedral during Sunday service. The physical act of drilling into the rock is seen as a desecration, and the mere presence of climbers during sacred ceremonies is a disruptive intrusion. They have asked, pleaded, and fought for climbers to recognize the spiritual significance of the site and voluntarily refrain from climbing, especially during the culturally significant month of June, when many important ceremonies take place. Their connection is spiritual, ancient, and communal. On the other side, you have the climbing community. Many climbers argue that they have a right to access public lands. They see climbing not as a desecration, but as a form of reverence, way to experience the tower's grandeur up close. They argue that they are responsible stewards of the environment, often practicing leave-no-trace ethics. They feel a deep, personal connection, forged through physical struggle and immense respect for the natural world. To them, being asked not to climb feels like being locked out of their own place of worship. Their connection is physical, personal, and recreational. The National Park Service was caught in the middle, tasked with an almost impossible mission to manage the tower for both public enjoyment and cultural preservation. How do you balance the legal rights of recreational users on public land with the religious freedoms and cultural heritage of Native American tribes? It's a question that has led to decades of negotiations, lawsuits, and simmering tension. In the 1990s, the Park Service implemented a compromise, a voluntary climbing closure during the month of June, respectfully asking climbers to stay off the tower during this ceremonial period. It also initiated a plan to manage climbing to protect the rock and the nesting falcons. This compromise, however, has never been fully accepted by everyone. While a majority of climbers, around 85%, do honor the voluntary closure, some do not, arguing that a voluntary closure on public land is an overreach and sets a dangerous precedent. This has led to legal challenges, with some climbers claiming the policy unlawfully promotes a specific religion. The courts have generally upheld the Park Service's management plan, but the tension remains. It's a classic American conflict. Individual liberty versus communal sanctity, recreation versus religion, federal law versus ancient tradition. So, the legacy of Roosevelt's 1906 Declaration is far more complex than simple preservation. It created a situation where one group's sanctuary became another group's playground. Devil's Tower National Monument stands today, not just as a geological marvel, but as a powerful symbol of the ongoing conversation in America about how we use, respect, and share our most cherished landscapes. The stone remains the same, a silent witness to the clashing human meanings swirling around its base. It reminds us that preservation is never simple, and that the history of a place is written not just in its rocks, but in the hearts and beliefs of all the people who hold it dear. Thank you so much for watching. This is a topic with a lot of different perspectives, and we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you found the story interesting, please give us a like and subscribe for more deep dives into our nation's fascinating history. We'll see you in the next video. Devil's Tower. To some, it's a geological marvel, a world-class climbing destination. To others, it's a sacred place, a site of ceremony and prayer. This is the story of that colossal stone and the deep divide at its base. A story of recreation versus reverence. Imagine this. It's 1893. Two local ranchers, William Rogers and Willard Ripley, decide they're going to conquer the tower. But how? There are no ropes, no harnesses, no modern gear. They spend months driving wooden pegs into a crack system, painstakingly creating a ladder that stretches hundreds of feet into the sky. On the 4th of July, in front of a crowd of onlookers, Rogers makes the final ascent, unfurling an American flag at the summit. It was an incredible feat of ingenuity and sheer nerve, a spectacle that marked the beginning of the tower's climbing history. That stake ladder, or what's left of it, is still visible on the side of the tower today, a fragile wooden scar reminding us of that first audacious climb. After that first ascent, the tower sat largely undisturbed for decades. The wooden ladder decayed, and the summit remained untouched. It wasn't until 1937 that the second ascent was made. this time by a team of 3 climbers using more recognizable techniques. Fritz Wiesner, a German-American climber and one of the best of his generation, led the expedition. They chose a different route, now famously known as the Wiesner route, and summited in under 5 hours. This ascent ushered in the modern era of climbing at Devil's Tower. It was no longer just about getting to the top. It was about the challenge, the technique, the purity of the line. The tower became a proving ground. Throughout the 20th century, climbing's popularity exploded. New routes were established, guidebooks were written, and thousands of climbers from around the world flocked to Wyoming to test their skills on the tower's unique hexagonal columns. For the climbing community, the tower was, and still is, a paradise. The cracks are perfect, the rock is solid, and the views are breathtaking. It represents adventure, personal achievement, and a connection with nature through physical effort. Climbers see themselves as temporary visitors, practicing a leave-no-trace ethic, aiming to have as little impact as possible on the rock they so deeply admire. For them, climbing is a form of respect, a way to intimately experience this natural wonder. But there's another, much older story here. Long before it was called Devil's Tower, this place had other names: Bear's Lodge, Bear's Tippy, Tree Rock, for at least 20 Native American tribes, including the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Arapaho. This geological formation is not just a rock, it's a sacred site, a place of immense spiritual power. It's central to their creation stories, their ceremonies, and their identity. The deep grooves running down its sides aren't just geological features. In many tribal traditions, they are the claw marks of a giant bear that scraped the rock while chasing children, who were saved by the Great Spirit raising the ground beneath them. The tower is a place for vision quests, for prayer, and for the annual Sundance ceremony. It is, in essence, an open-air cathedral, and from this perspective, the act of climbing the tower is seen very differently. Imagine someone setting up ropes and climbing gear on the walls of the Vatican or the Western Wall. For many Native Americans, that's exactly what it feels like. They see the hundreds of climbers, the fixed metal bolts drilled into the rock, and the recreational noise as a deep and painful desecration. It disrupts the sanctity of the site, interferes with ceremonies, and disregards the spiritual significance that has existed for centuries. The tower is a place to be revered from below, a place to communicate with the Creator, not a playground to be conquered. This fundamental conflict came to a head in the 1990s. The National Park Service, caught between its mandate to provide for public recreation and its responsibility to respect the cultural significance of the site, found itself in a difficult position. How could they manage a place that held to such powerful, yet conflicting, meanings? After years of negotiations with both climbing groups and tribal representatives, a compromise was reached: the voluntary June climbing closure. The Park Service asks that climbers voluntarily refrain from climbing the tower during the month of June, a particularly significant time for Native American ceremonies, including the Sundance. This was a landmark decision, an attempt to bridge the gap between two vastly different worldviews. It wasn't a ban, but a request, a plea for respect. And for the most part, EDAS worked. While not all climbers honor the closure, the majority do. The number of climbers in June has dropped by about 85% since the policy was implemented. It represents a small but significant gesture of understanding from the climbing community. It's an acknowledgement that this place is more than just a magnificent piece of rock. It's a living, cultural landscape. However, the debate is far from over. Some climbers argue that any restriction, even a voluntary one, infringes on their right to access public lands. On the other side, many tribal members feel the voluntary closure doesn't go far enough. They believe the tower should be permanently closed to climbing to fully honor its sacredness. The bolts and anchors that remain in the rock are still seen as a permanent scar, a constant reminder of the intrusion. The tension remains, a quiet but persistent hum at the base of the tower. So what does the future hold for this incredible place? The story of Devil's Tower is a microcosm of a larger conversation happening all over the world. How do we balance the preservation of cultural heritage with the public's desire for outdoor recreation? There are no easy answers. It requires listening, it requires empathy, and it requires a willingness to see the world through someone else's eyes. Whether you see a challenging rock face or a sacred altar, Devil's Tower demands our respect. It stands as a powerful symbol, not just of nature's grandeur, but of the ongoing human struggle to find common ground. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey to the base of the sacred stone. It's a complex story, and one that continues to evolve. If you found this interesting, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more stories like this. See you next time. Imagine a story, a powerful story, passed down through whispers, fireside chats, and sacred ceremonies. A story so deeply woven into the fabric of a people that it breathes with the land itself. Now, imagine that story being silenced, renamed, and almost forgotten. This isn't just a hypothetical. It's the real history of countless Native American nations and their sacred sites today. We're diving into a powerful movement of cultural resurgence, a time when ancient voices began to speak again, reclaiming what was nearly lost. This is the story of the return of Native voices in the 20th century. For centuries, the narrative of America was largely written by outsiders, by settlers and colonizers. They mapped the lands, renamed the mountains, and retold the histories through their own lens. A towering, majestic rock formation in Wyoming, a place of immense spiritual significance to the Lakota, Cheyenne, and other Plains tribes, was given a new name: Devil's Tower. A name that stripped away its sanctity, replacing it with a sense of foreboding and foreign mythology. But to the people who had lived in its shadow for generations, it had always been, and would always be, Matotipila, or Bear Lodge. The name Devil's Tower came from a mistranslation during an 1875 expedition. A translator misinterpreted a native name to mean Bad God's Tower, which was then sensationalized into Devil's Tower. This single act of misinterpretation had a profound impact. It severed the connection between the site and its indigenous meaning for the wider world. The story of the great bear whose claws raked the sides of the monolith as it chased 7 young girls who were lifted to safety in the sky to become the Pleiades star cluster was buried under a new ominous label. The rock was no longer a symbol of salvation and celestial connection. It was a place associated with evil. But stories, like the land itself, are resilient. As the 20th century dawned and progressed, a quiet but powerful revolution was taking place across Native nations. It was a revolution of memory, a fight to reclaim identity. After generations of policies aimed at assimilation boarding schools that forbade Native languages, suppression of religious ceremonies, a new generation of leaders, elders, and activists rose up. They understood that to heal their communities, they had to reclaim their stories. They had to teach their children the true names of the mountains and the rivers. The movement to reclaim Mato Tipila was a landmark moment in this cultural renaissance. It wasn't just about changing a name on a map. It was about reconsecrating a sacred space. It was about demanding respect for a belief system that sees the divine in the natural world. Elders began to speak openly again, sharing the ancient legends that had been driven underground. They brought their youth to the base of the great rock, not just to see a geological wonder, but to feel the presence of their ancestors, to hear the echoes of the bear's growl and the prayers of the 7 sisters. They explained that the deep grooves running down the sides of the tower were not just the result of cooling magma. They were the sacred marks of the Great Bear, a physical reminder of a divine intervention. They taught the songs and ceremonies tied to the site, rituals for renewal, and prayers for guidance. These were not just myths or fairy tales. They were living histories, a spiritual roadmap that connected the people to their origins, to the stars, and to the land itself. This was education in its purest form, passed from one generation to the next, ensuring the spirit of Matotipila would not be extinguished. This reclamation effort wasn't without challenges. For many, Devil's Tower had become a famous tourist destination and a popular spot for rock climbers. The idea of respecting it as a sacred site, especially during ceremonial times in June, created friction. Native leaders weren't asking for the site to be closed off entirely. Instead, they asked for understanding. They initiated a voluntary climbing moratorium during the month of June, a time of significant ceremonies like the Sundance. They asked climbers to pause and consider that they were scaling the walls of a church, a living temple. This request was a profound test of cross-cultural respect. While not all climbers complied, The program started a crucial dialogue. It forced a national conversation about the use of public lands and the rights of indigenous peoples to practice their religion freely. It highlighted the difference between seeing land as a resource to be conquered or used for recreation, and seeing it as a relative, a sacred entity deserving of reverence. The Park Service began to incorporate more of the Native American perspective into its official narrative, changing signs and training rangers to share the stories of Mato Tipila. The story of Matotipila is a powerful chapter, but is just one part of a much larger story unfolding across the continent. From the peaks of the Black Hills in South Dakota to the canyons of Arizona, Native nations are working tirelessly to restore their traditional names and protect their sacred sites. They are revitalizing their languages, the very vessels that carry their unique worldviews and cosmologies. Language isn't just a collection of words, it's a universe of thought, history, and relationship. When a child learns to call the mountain by its true name, they are learning more than a word. They are learning their place in that universe. This work is carried out by dedicated culture bearers, language teachers, tribal historians, and passionate young people who are using modern tools to preserve ancient wisdom. They are creating digital archives, recording elders' stories, developing language apps, and using social media to share their heritage with the world. They are demonstrating that culture is not a static relic of the past. It is a living, breathing, evolving force. They are ensuring that the return of native voices is not a fleeting moment, but a sustained chorus that will grow louder and stronger for generations to come. What can we learn from this? It teaches us that history is never just one story. It's a complex tapestry woven from many threads. And for too long, many of those threads have been invisible. Reclaiming a name is reclaiming a narrative. It's an act of defiance against a history of erasure. It's an affirmation that indigenous cultures are not only surviving, they are thriving and have immense wisdom to offer the world, especially in a time when our relationship with the natural world feels more precarious than ever. When you see a place like Matotipila, I hope you'll remember its story. See it not just as a geological marvel, but as an altar, a history book written in stone, and a testament to the enduring power of a people to reclaim their voice and their sacred connection to the earth. The story of Matotipila is a story of hope. It reminds us that no matter how hard one tries to silence a story, the land remembers. And as long as the people listen, the stories will never truly die. They will wait, patiently, for the moment to be told anew. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey today. It's stories like these that reshape our understanding of the world. If you found this meaningful, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the hidden histories that surround us. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious. Have you ever seen a place so strange, so otherworldly, that it just had to be in a movie? That's exactly what happened with Devil's Tower. This colossal rock formation, jutting out of the Wyoming landscape, didn't just capture the imagination of climbers and geologists. It captured Hollywood's too, and that's where our story takes a fascinating turn, from a sacred site to a silver screen superstar. Let's rewind to 1977. Steven Spielberg, a director already making waves, was looking for the perfect jaw-dropping location for his new film, a story about humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial life. He needed a place that looked like it was chosen by aliens, a landmark that felt both ancient and alien. His search led him to Devil's Tower, and with the release of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the tower was rocketed into global stardom. Suddenly, this geological wonder was no longer just a feature on a map of Wyoming. It was the place where the spaceships landed. The iconic image of Richard Dreyfuss's character, Roy Neary, obsessively sculpting the tower out of his mashed potatoes, became etched into our collective memory. It was driven, haunted by a vision of this strange mountain, a vision shared by others who were invited to this cosmic meeting point. The film brilliantly used the tower's unique shape, its fluted columns, and its flat top, as a divinally, or rather extraterrestrially, appointed landing pad. Close Encounters was a blockbuster, It wasn't just a movie. It was a cultural event, and Devil's Tower was its co-star. The film transformed the way the world saw it. Tourism to the monument skyrocketed. People from all over the globe, inspired by Spielberg's vision, flocked to Wyoming to see the alien landing site for themselves. They weren't just tourists anymore. They were pilgrims on a sci-fi quest, hoping to feel a sliver of that cinematic magic. The area around the tower quickly adapted to its newfound fame. Gift shops popped up, their shelves brimming with memorabilia. You could buy t-shirts with aliens waving from the top of the tower, keychains shaped like the iconic rock, and, of course, postcards. So many postcards. The tower's image was everywhere. It was on coffee mugs, snow globes, and even mashed potato-scented candles for a time. It had become a brand, an easily recognizable symbol of wonder, mystery, and Hollywood adventure. This pop culture explosion cemented Devil's Tower as an American icon, right up there with the Statue of Liberty or the Golden Gate Bridge. It represented the grand, awe-inspiring landscapes of the American West, but with a new, sci-fi twist. It was a place where the wild frontier met the final frontier. It became a shorthand in other media, too. A quick shot of the tower in a TV show or another movie instantly communicated a sense of mystery, the possibility of something extraordinary just over the horizon. But here's the thing about fame, especially the Hollywood kind. It's often while millions of people now recognize the tower from Close Encounters, how many knew its real name? The name given to it by the people who have lived in its shadow for centuries. To the Lakota, it's Matotipila, meaning Bear Lodge. To the Cheyenne, it's Bear's Tippy. For dozens of Native American tribes, this isn't a movie set or a tourist trap. It's a sacred place, a site of ceremony, prayer, and profound spiritual significance. The stories associated with the tower, passed down through generations, are just as epic as any Hollywood blockbuster. They speak of a giant bear, its claws raking the sides of the rock as it chased 7 young girls, who were then lifted into the sky to become the stars of the Pleiades constellation. These stories aren't just myths. They are teachings about courage, faith, and the deep connection between the people and the land. They are the spiritual bedrock of this place, but this deeper meaning was often lost in the sci-fi spectacle. The pop culture image, powerful as it was, created a shadow. In that shadow, the true history and spiritual importance of the tower struggled to be seen. Tourists came looking for little green men, often oblivious to the sacred bundles and prayer cloths tied to the trees along the trails. Signs of ongoing, living, spiritual practices. Think about it. The film portrays a group of people irresistibly drawn to the tower, compelled by an external force to make a pilgrimage. In a strange, unintentional way, this mirrors the real-life spiritual pull the tower has for native peoples. But the movie's narrative, focused on aliens, effectively overwrites the indigenous one. The world learned a new story for the tower, a story of fiction. While it's ancient, true stories were often relegated to a footnote in a travel guide. This isn't to demonize the movie. Close Encounters is a masterpiece of cinema that brought a sense of wonder to millions. It's a beautiful film about communication and hope, and in many ways, it saved the tower from obscurity, bringing it attention and, with it, resources for preservation. But it's a classic example of cultural appropriation, even if unintentional. A sacred site was rebranded for entertainment, its meaning flattened into a single, sensational narrative. The challenge, then, becomes peeling back that pop culture layer. It's about looking at the tower and seeing more than just a landing pad. It's about recognizing the clash of 2 very different ways of seeing the world. One, a commercial culture that packages and sells experiences. The other, an indigenous culture that sees the land as sacred, as family, as a source of spiritual identity. As visitors, we have a choice. We can arrive with a head full of mashed potatoes and movie scenes, looking for a fun photo op, or we can arrive with an open heart and a curious mind. We can take the time to read the park's interpretive signs, to learn about the Bear Lodge stories, to understand why the month of June is a voluntary climbing closer out of respect for ceremonies. We can see the prayer cloths, not as litter, but as physical manifestations of faith, hope, and connection. The story of Devil's Tower in pop culture is a double-edged sword. It brought fame, but also misunderstanding. It created an icon, but also obscured an identity. It shows us that a place can mean many things to many people, and sometimes the loudest story isn't the truest one. The real magic of the tower isn't that aliens might have landed there. It's that, for thousands of years, people have stood in its presence and felt a connection to something much, much bigger than themselves. That's a story far more profound than any movie. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the cultural life of Devil's Tower. It's a story with many layers, and we've only scratched the surface. If you found this interesting, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into the places and stories that shape our world. We'll see you in the next video. Welcome back, truth seekers, to our ongoing investigation into the mystery of the tower. In this chapter, The Spirits in the Wind, we venture deeper into the strange and unexplained phenomena surrounding this enigmatic structure. The line between our world and something else is becoming increasingly blurred, and what we're about to share might just change everything you thought you knew. For months, we've documented the physical oddities and historical context of the tower. But now, the stories are shifting. We're receiving a flood of reports, not just of strange lights, but of something far more personal, far more interactive. People living miles away are describing identical glowing orbs, pulsating with a soft, ethereal light, hovering near the tower before vanishing into the night. We've collected dozens of similar accounts, each one corroborating the last. These aren't just swamp gas or weather balloons. The descriptions are too consistent, too specific. One witness, a retired astronomer who has lived in the area for over 40 years, shared his footage with us. It shows a cluster of these orbs moving in a formation that defies any known aerial technology. They shift, they merge, they dance in the sky in a way that seems intelligent. He told us, with a tremor in his voice, that he's never seen anything like it in all his years of stargazing. He believes they aren't just lights, but some form of consciousness, observing us from the veil of night. But the orbs are only the beginning. The reports of shadowy shapes have become more frequent and more unsettling. These aren't just tricks of the light or fleeting glimpses in the corner of your eye. We're talking about well-defined, human-like silhouettes seen stalking the periphery of the tower's grounds, especially during twilight. They seem to melt into the trees or dissipate like smoke when approached. One local hiker, who often walks the trails nearby, installed a motion-activated camera after feeling constantly watched. The images he captured are chilling. We've analyzed the footage frame by frame. What appears is a tall, slender figure, devoid of any discernible features, moving with an unnatural fluidity. It doesn't walk, it glides. It appears in one frame and is gone in the next. Too quick for a person, too deliberate for an animal. Several different people, in different locations around the tower, have described this exact same entity. They call it the Watcher. Is it a guardian? A prisoner? Or something else entirely? The consistency in these independent sightings is what truly makes the hair on your arms stand up. And then there's the sound. We've previously discussed the low hum that emanates from the tower. But now, witnesses are reporting something new. Eerie, harmonic frequencies. It's described as a choir of otherworldly voices, a symphony that seems to vibrate not just in the air, but inside your very bones. We managed to capture an audio recording on a highly sensitive parabolic microphone. When we ran it through a spectral analysis, we found something astounding. The harmonics don't align with any known musical scale or natural resonance. They are mathematically perfect, yet profoundly alien. These sounds seem to have a tangible effect on the environment. During the recordings, our equipment would malfunction. Compasses would spin wildly, and some of our team members reported feeling a sense of profound sadness or overwhelming peace. It's as if the tower itself is singing a song, and its melody can alter both our technology and our emotional state. What kind of energy could produce such an effect? We are consulting with acousticians and physicists, but so far, no one has a conventional explanation. Perhaps the most compelling and perplexing new evidence comes from the shared experiences of local residents. We've spoken to over a dozen people who have reported having vivid, recurring dreams about the tower. And these aren't just random dreams. They share specific, unnerving details. They all dream of being drawn toward it, walking a path they don't recognize. In their waking life, in the dream, the tower's door, which we know to be sealed shut, stands wide open, beckoning them inside with a soft, warm light. One woman, a painter, told us she's had the dream every night for a week. She described the interior in such detail, spiraling staircases made of a stone that glows from within, walls covered in symbols that shift and change that we felt we were there with her. Another man, a carpenter who lives 10 miles away and had never met the painter, described the exact same interior. He even drew the symbols he saw on the walls. When we compared his drawings to the painter's descriptions, they were a perfect match. This collective dream experience is unprecedented. How can multiple, unrelated individuals be having the same dream, sharing a vision of a place none of them have ever been inside? It suggests a form of communication, a psychic signal broadcast from the tower, reaching out to people while they sleep. It's as if the tower is choosing people, inviting them, pulling them towards its mystery. The boundary between the world of myth and the world of personal experience is not just blurring, it's dissolving completely. We are no longer just investigating a strange structure. We are documenting a phenomenon that seems to be actively interacting with human consciousness. The glowing orbs, the shadow figures, the impossible harmonics, and the shared dreams all point to one conclusion. Something is happening at the tower. Something ancient and powerful is awakening, and it is making its presence known. The legends are no longer just stories whispered around a campfire. They are becoming reality, written in the sky, heard in the wind, and dreamed in the minds of those who live in its shadow. We are standing at the precipice of a great unknown. The evidence is mounting, the stories are converging, and the mystery of the tower is deeper than we ever imagined. What are these spirits in the wind? Are they ghosts of the past? Visitors from another dimension? Or a form of consciousness native to the earth that we are only now beginning to perceive? We don't have the answers yet, but we will not stop searching. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. The truth is out there, and together, we're going to find it. If you've had any similar experiences or have any information to share, please reach out to us. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in our investigation. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and we'll see you next time. Have you ever stood in a place so ancient, so profound, that you could almost hear it breathe? Have you felt the weight of history in the whisper of the wind, or seen stories etched into the face of a mountain? We often think of memory as something personal, something held within our own minds. But what if the land itself could remember? What if the earth beneath our feet was a living library, holding the stories of everyone who came before? For many indigenous peoples around the world, this isn't just a poetic idea, it's a fundamental truth. The land is not a backdrop for human events. It's a participant, a witness, and a storyteller. Every river, every valley, every forest, and every stone holds a memory, a lesson, a piece of a much larger, sacred narrative. Today, let's journey into this way of seeing, into the language of the land. Let's travel, in our minds, to the Great Plains of North America, where a colossal stone formation rises dramatically from the earth. To many, it's known as Devil's Tower, a name given by colonels and geologists. But to the Lakota, it is Matotipila, the bear sludge. To the Kiowa, the tree rock. Long before it was a national monument, it was a sacred site, a place of ceremony, prayer, and pilgrimage. When a visitor sees Devil's Tower, they might see a geological wonder, an impressive formation of igneous rock. They might think of scientific explanations, magma, erosion, and those things are true in their own way. But for the tribes who have revered this place for millennia, that's only a fraction of the story. To them, this tower isn't just rock, it's a storyteller. Its deep vertical grooves aren't just the result of cooling magma. They are the claw marks of a giant bear, a key element in sacred stories that teach lessons about courage, family, and respect for nature. The tower isn't an inanimate object. It holds the echoes of thousands of years of prayers, the resonance of songs carried on the wind, and the spiritual imprint of countless footsteps that have walked its shadow in reverence. The land remembers. It remembers the sound of children's laughter, the quiet determination of a hunter, the solemn words of an elder. This concept extends far beyond one single monument. Imagine walking through a forest. You might see trees, but someone whose ancestors have lived there for generations might see more. They might see the one tree their great-grandmother used to gather medicine from. They might see the bend in the river where the salmon have always returned, a living promise of sustenance. They might see the clearing where important councils were held, where decisions that shaped the future of their people were made under the silent watch of the stars. These aren't just points on a map. They are chapters in a living history book. When a place is given a name in an indigenous language, that name is often a description, a story, or a lesson in itself. It might describe the way the water sounds as it flows over the rocks, or the type of plants that grow there, or an important event that happened on that spot. The names connect people to the place, reinforcing their relationship and their responsibilities to it. Renaming these places with colonial names often erases these stories, silencing the language of the land and replacing it with a language of ownership and extraction. It's like tearing a page out of a sacred text. This relationship with the land is one of reciprocity. It's not just about what the land provides, but what is owed to the land in return. It's about stewardship, about caring for the earth as you would care for a family member. The land remembers the care it is given, and it remembers the harm it endures. The health of the land is seen as directly connected to the health of the people. When the rivers are polluted, when the forests are clear-cut, it's not just an environmental issue. It's a deep, spiritual wound. It's an act of forgetting, an erasure of memory. So, how can we start to listen to this language? How can we begin to perceive the memory held within the places we inhabit? It starts with a shift. In perspective, it starts with slowing down. The next time you go for a walk, whether it's in a grand national park or your local green space, try to see it differently. Look beyond the surface. Notice the oldest tree. Imagine the seasons it has witnessed, the storms it has weathered, the people who have rested in its shade. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Think about the layers of history you are standing on. Who walked here 100 years ago? 1,000. What were their lives like? What did this place mean to them? Listen. Don't just listen with your ears for the sounds of birds or rustling leaves, but listen with your heart. Can you feel a sense of peace, or perhaps of sorrow? Places have an energy, a spirit. Learning about the indigenous history of the land you live on is a powerful step. Whose ancestral territory is it? What were the original names for the mountains and rivers? What stories do those names tell? This isn't about feeling guilty about the past. It's about acknowledging the full, complex history of a place. It's about showing respect for the memories the land holds, even the painful ones. By doing this, we begin to mend the disconnect. We start to see ourselves, not as masters of the land, but as part of its ongoing story. The land doesn't speak in human words, but it communicates constantly. It speaks in the changing of the seasons, in the resilience of a wildflower pushing through concrete, in the flow of a river carving its path through stone. It holds the wisdom of geological time and the intimacy of a single human footprint. It remembers everything, like Matotipila, the Bear's Lodge, which stands as a silent, powerful storyteller on the plains. The land all around us is brimming with stories, with memory, with life. It's a library where every rock, river, and tree is a volume waiting to be read. We just need to learn the language. We just need to remember how to listen. Thank you so much for joining me on this reflection today. If this resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Let's continue to learn and grow together. Welcome back to our journey through the story of Matotipila, or Devil's Tower. In our final chapter, we're looking at the present and future of this incredible place, focusing on a story of collaboration, respect, and stewardship. How do we protect a place that is both a world-class natural wonder and a deeply sacred site? Let's find out. For centuries, this monolithic tower has been a place of ceremony, prayer, and reverence for over 24 Native American tribes, including the Lakota, Cheyenne, and Kiowa. It's a place woven into their origin stories, their spiritual practices, and their very identity. But as the world changed, the tower also became a magnet for another group of people. Rock climbers, drawn by its unique geology and challenging vertical cracks. Climbers from around the globe began to see the tower as the ultimate ascent. For a long time, these two worlds are sacred, and the recreational existed in a state of tension. Imagine a place of worship, like a cathedral or a temple. Now, imagine people scaling its outer walls for sport. That's the perspective many native people had. The act of climbing, the installation of permanent bolts, and the general noise and activity were seen as a profound disruption and desecration of a holy site. The tower wasn't just a rock, it was, and is, a living, sacred entity. This conflict came to a head, leading to years of dialogue, legal challenges, and heartfelt conversations. The central question was, how can we honor the deep cultural significance of the tower while still allowing for public access and recreation? The solution that emerged is a beautiful, if imperfect, example of modern stewardship and cultural respect in action. In 1995, the National Park Service, after extensive consultation with the associated tribes, implemented a groundbreaking plan, the Voluntary June Climbing Closure. This policy requests that climbers voluntarily refrain from ascending the tower during the entire month of June. Why June? Because this is a particularly significant time for many tribal ceremonies, including the sun dance, which often take place within sight of the tower. June is a time of renewal, prayer, and intense spiritual activity. The closure is a sign of respect, creating a space of quiet and solemnity for these important cultural practices to occur without interruption. Now, you might be wondering, why voluntary? Why not just ban climbing for the month? This was a point of legal contention. The courts ultimately ruled that a mandatory ban could be seen as the government endorsing a specific religious practice, which would violate the Establishment Clause of the Constitution. So, the voluntary closure was their compromise. It relies not on the force of law, but on the power of education and the goodwill of the climbing community. And the amazing thing is, for the most part, it works. The National Park Service has done an incredible job of educating visitors. When you arrive at Devil's Tower, you'll find information explaining the cultural significance of the site and the reasoning behind the June closure. Park rangers talk to climbers, and interpretive signs share the native perspective. As a result, there's been a dramatic decrease often. Over 80% in the number of climbers during June. Many climbers, once they understand what the tower means to native peoples, willingly choose to honor the request. They recognize that their recreation can wait, that some places hold a significance that transcends sport. This act of choosing respect over recreation is a powerful statement. This spirit of cooperation extends beyond the June closure. There's a continuous effort to balance conservation with cultural preservation. For example, there's a management plan that prohibits the installation of new bolts or fixed pins on the tower. This helps preserve the natural character of the rock and minimizes the physical impact of climbing, addressing another key concern of the tribes. Commercial filming and other special uses are also heavily restricted to maintain the park's serene and spiritual atmosphere. Protecting the tower is also about protecting the entire ecosystem around it. The Park Service works to manage the Ponderosa Pine Forest, the Prairie Dog Towns, and the Belforchi River that flows nearby. They monitor air and water quality, control invasive species, and work to maintain the natural sound. All of these environmental efforts are, in a way, an extension of protecting the sacred. For the tribes, the sacredness of Mato Tipila is not confined to the rock itself. It includes the land, the plants, the animals, and the sky that surround it. A healthy ecosystem is essential for a healthy spiritual center. So, today, a unique harmony exists at Devil's Tower. It's a place where you can see a golden eagle soaring overhead, hear the wind whistling through the pines, and feel a sense of ancient power. You might also see prayer bundles of small, colorful cloths tied to trees left as offerings by native people. These are sacred objects, and visitors are asked to observe them with respect, to not touch or disturb them. They are a visible reminder that this is an active place of worship. At the same time, on any day outside of June, you might see climbers carefully making their way up the tower's columns, practicing their sport with a deep appreciation for the natural challenge it presents. And increasingly, these climbers are advocates for the tower's protection, understanding that their access depends on a respectful relationship with the tribes. The story of Devil's Tower in the modern era is a testament to the idea that we can find common ground. It shows that non-native people can learn to see a landscape through a different cultural lens, and that through dialogue and mutual respect, we can create management practices that honor both faith and stewardship. It isn't a perfect system, and disagreements still arise, but it represents a profound shift away from the historical disregard for Native American sacred sites. It's a living agreement, a dance between ancient traditions and modern uses. Matotipila stands as a powerful symbol, not just of geological wonder, but of human potential hour. Potential to listen, to learn, and to work together to protect the places that matter most, for reasons both seen and unseen. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey to understand the many layers of Devil's Tower. I hope this series has given you a deeper appreciation for this special place. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning. Welcome back, truth seekers and mystery lovers. We've journeyed through scientific theories, delved into ancient legends, and even explored how Hollywood tried to capture its magic. But as we stand here, in the shadow of this colossal enigma, one truth becomes overwhelmingly clear. No single story, no one explanation, can truly contain the essence of the tower. It defies our neat little boxers and laughs at our attempts to label it. Think about it. Geologists will tell you it's an igneous intrusion, a marvel of volcanic activity. They'll show you charts, explain the erosion of surrounding sedimentary rock, and present a perfectly logical, scientific case. And they're not wrong. The sheer vertical columns, the unique phonolite, porphyry rock. It's a geological masterpiece, a textbook example of Earth's power. We can understand the how of its formation. But does that explain the why? Why here? Why does it feel so different from any other mountain or butte on the planet? Science gives us the anatomy, but it can't quite capture the soul. And what a soul it has. For generations, long before geologists arrived with their hammers and instruments, this was a sacred place. For the Lakota, the Cheyenne, and other plains tribes, this isn't just a rock. It's Mato Tipila, the bear slarch. It's the site of a miraculous escape, where 7 sisters were lifted to the heavens to become the Pleiades star cluster, saved from a giant bear whose claws scored the sides of the monolith. This isn't just a story, it's a living history, a spiritual anchor. When you stand here and listen, truly listen, you can almost hear the echoes of those ancient prayers and ceremonies. The silence around the tower is not empty. It's filled with the weight of that reverence, a presence that transcends mere geology. It's a place where the natural world touches the supernatural, where the veil between worlds feels incredibly thin. Then, Hollywood came calling. Steven Spielberg, in a stroke of genius, saw the tower not just as a landmark, but as a destination. In Close Encounters of the Third Kind, it became a beacon, a cosmic meeting point, a symbol of humanity's yearning to connect with something beyond ourselves. Suddenly, the tower was imprinted onto the global consciousness in a new way. It became a symbol of wonder, of hope, and of the grand, beautiful unknown. Millions who had never heard the Native American legends or studied its geology now saw it as a place of otherworldly contact. And in a way, they weren't far off, were they? The film tapped into that same innate feeling the tower evokes in everyone who sees it. A sense of something bigger than us, a mystery waiting to be unraveled. So what is the tower? Is it a geological wonder, a sacred site, an alien landing pad? The answer is yes. It's all of these things, and so much more. It's a meeting place, a crossroads of worlds. Here, the ancient and the modern stand side by side. You can see a group of climbers, equipped with the latest gear, scaling its sheer faces, right next to prayer bundles tied to trees by Native Americans, continuing traditions that are centuries old. The sacred and the curious coexist. Tourists with cameras flock to capture its image, while others come on a pilgrimage, seeking a deeper, more personal connection. The tower doesn't offer easy answers. It doesn't need to. Its power lies in the questions it inspires. It forces us to look up, to wonder, to feel small in the face of something so immense and timeless. It challenges our understanding of the world, reminding us that there are still mysteries that science can't fully explain, that there is a magic that legends try to capture, and that there is a sense of wonder that films can only hope to reflect. This place is more than the sum of its parts. It's more than rock, more than story, more than a movie set. It's a testament to the enduring power of mystery. In a world where we strive to know everything, to have every question answered and every corner of the map filled in, the tower stands as a proud, silent reminder that it's okay not to know. In fact, it's beautiful. The silence here doesn't signal an absence of answers. It speaks a language all its own, a language of awe, of reverence, and of a profound, beautiful, and enduring mystery. It's a mystery that we don't need to solve, but one we should all be grateful still exists. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey to the heart of one of Earth's greatest enigmas. If you've enjoyed this exploration, please hit that like button and consider subscribing for more deep dives into the world's most fascinating mysteries. I'd love to hear your own thoughts and feelings about the tower in the comments below. Until next time, keep looking up and keep wondering. As the sun dips below the horizon, it paints the sky in strokes of fiery orange and soft lavender. Look there. See how the shadow of the tower stretches long and thin, like a finger pointing across the vast, golden prairie. It's a silent sundial, marking the end of another day. A silent testament to all the days that have come before. The air grows cool, carrying the scent of dry grass and distant rain. It's a time for stillness, for listening to the quiet hum of the earth as it prepares for the night. In this moment of transition, from light to dark, the world seems to hold its breath. The last of the day's warmth lingers on the stones of the tower, a memory of the sun's embrace. The prairie, once shimmering under the heat, now settles into a deep, velvety silence, broken only by the chirping of crickets tuning up for their nightly symphony. It's a peaceful solitude, a feeling of being a small part of something immense and ancient. The tower stands as a lonely sentinel, its silhouette a stark, beautiful shape against the fading light. It has watched countless sunsets just like this one, each unique, each a promise of a new dawn. As the final sliver of sun vanishes, the first star appears, a tiny, defiant pinprick of light. It's Venus, the evening star, heralding the arrival of the celestial host. One by one, her companions join her. The deep indigo of the twilight sky becomes a canvas, and soon it is awash with 1,000 glittering points of light. The sheer scale of it is humbling. It makes you feel incredibly small, yet profoundly connected. Each star is a distant sun, a world of its own, and we are here, under the same cosmic blanket that has covered humanity for all of time. There's a comfort in that consistency, in knowing that these same stars have looked down upon generations of dreamers, lovers, and wanderers. They are the constant in our ever-changing world. The tower itself seems to reach for them, its peak aimed at the heart of the galaxy. Imagine all the eyes that have looked up from this very spot, all the wishes whispered into the night. We are just the latest in a long line of stargazers, sharing a universal moment of wonder. The wind whispers through the tall grasses, carrying secrets from the past and dreams for the future. And now, as our eyes adjust to the darkness, look closely to the east. Though you say it, a tiny, shimmering cluster, like a small, hazy diamond spilled upon the black velvet of space. That is the Pleiades. To the naked eye, it looks like a miniature dipper, a delicate gathering of stars. They seem to huddle together for warmth in the cold expanse of the cosmos. Their light has traveled for over 400 years to reach us, to grace our sky tonight. It's a message from the deep past, arriving in this very moment. There is an ancient story tied to those stars, a legend whispered around campfires and passed down through generations. They are known as the Seven Sisters. The tale varies from culture to culture, but the heart of it often remains the same. 7 beautiful sisters, pursued and placed in the heavens for their own protection, forever fleeing across the night sky. Most people can only see 6 stars with a naked eye. The 7th, The lost sister is a mystery, a celestial whisper, is hiding as her light just too faint for us to see. This story adds another layer to the beauty of the night. It transforms these points of light into characters in an epic, eternal drama. As we stand here, in the shadow of the old tower, we are not just observing astronomical phenomena. We are participating in a story as old as human imagination. The stars become more than just burning balls of gas. They are symbols of love, loss, and eternal pursuit. They connect us to our ancestors, who saw the same patterns and wove the same kinds of tales to make sense of the universe and their place within it. The legend of the Pleiades reminds us that we have always been storytellers. It's in our nature to look at the world around us and find meaning, to see patterns and create narratives. The sky is the grandest storybook of all, and its pages are open to us every clear night. The tower, the prairie, the stars they are all part of a larger narrative that we are briefly, wonderfully, a part of. The same stars that guided ancient sailors and inspired poets are shining down on us right now. As the Pleiades climb higher into the sky, their gentle blue-white light seems to pulse with a quiet energy. The universe is not silent. It is singing a song of immense age and beauty, and we are lucky enough to be here to listen. The tower's shadow has now completely merged with the darkness of the prairie, its form lost to the night, but it's still there, a steadfast presence, connecting the earth below with the sky beyond. It feels as though it is listening with us, sharing in this serene communion. Let this moment sink in. The cool night air, the vast, starry expanse, and the soft glow of a legend continuing its journey across the heavens. This is a moment of pure peace, a reminder of the beauty that exists all around us if we just take the time to look up and be still. The story of the Seven Sisters isn't just an old myth. It's a living one, softly glowing for us tonight, a timeless connection between the earth and the infinite sky beyond. Thank you for sharing this quiet reflection with me. Don't forget to look up every once in a while. If you enjoyed this journey, please consider subscribing for more moments of wonder. Good night.